Hi, I'm RELiON Ambassador Seth Hughes, and today I'm chatting with Quin Schrock of the wildly popular Instagram account Everchanging Horizon.
I live on the road. I sleep in a van every night. I'm actually kind of obsessed with just like making vans now.
Quin, yeah, great to meet you. Quin's Instagram is Everchanging Horizon, and just one look at his feed and your jaw will instantly hit the floor. I follow your other Instagram feed, Quins Van. Everybody should check that out if you're into van builds. I've always been a huge fan of your feed. Just like top notch, like amazing photos, like consistently amazing quality. And you're obviously a van lifer.
So yeah, van life came about it came about really soon after I started doing travel photography, realizing that that's just like the way to go.
Right.
You know, there's not really any better option. When I started living out of my Corolla and blowing up my air mattress every night, it's like I would see Sprinter vans pass by and be like, all right, that's probably the goal, you know? And then, I mean, like there's Airstream options too. It's just for me, I was always trying to be more nimble, and I didn't feel the need to have that much space.
Right. Hey, I've gone down the van building rabbit hole more than one time, that's for sure. And yeah, your van builds are crazy cool. Like, I mean, I love your aesthetic, and obviously you've got that eye for symmetry and for good design. And yeah, so what was your inspiration for that band that you're in right now?
I think similar to like my life in photography, I think in the first few years I pretty much was just taking photos of like stuff that I'd already seen, kind of just trying to like figure out how to be a photographer, like what I wanted to do. And then similar, like mirroring that with van life, my first 2 or 3 builds were kind of just like replicating what I'd already seen and just making sure that I could do it, because I was a little worried, like if I tried to be really, really unique and like push boundaries, like in the beginning, the whole thing would fall apart, or like, you know, something would like come off when I brake all of a sudden and like fly forward. Like I just didn't trust myself, because it's like more of a technical thing than photography. Whereas photography, like, you know, you can get creative with it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Like maybe someone won't like it, but if I do something wrong in the van, I could, you know, have a nuclear meltdown and it could blow up or something, you know. It just felt like higher stakes. So the first few were kind of like paint by numbers, like watching YouTube videos and like contacting my friends that already had expertise. So I wasn't confident with myself yet. And then the one that I'm in right now, this is probably my first, like, it's not like I pushed the boundaries, but like I started to do things like based off of my confidence that I was getting. I started to do things a little different, like just make them look differently, and really show like more of a style to it, as opposed to just like utilitarian, like making it functional, you know.
Right.
A lot of stuff in here isn't very functional, like, or it is functional, but it's like, it's really just like the cool, like being able to flip things up. And I don't know, I just like the kind of like surprise elements of some of the things. So that was always like what I wanted to do. I just didn't know what I could do until this build. This is my 4th build. And it's not really build, it's my 4th van. It's more so like my 2nd official build. And then I did my first van in like 2 days. All I needed was like a bed platform and a mattress. You know? So my first build was like, it was a 1985 Toyota. It was literally called a van. Like that was the term on the title of the van. And and like it didn't even have like a fan or like any windows that opened, or like it was just like as basic as it gets. So I don't know if I would consider that a build. And then it was a pretty bad experience, so I didn't have a van for a little bit. And then And then when I started making actual money as a photographer, I just kind of, one of my buddies that made vans like announced that he had a smaller Sprinter, and I knew that's what I would want if I wanted to get a van. So thought about it for a few days, and I ended up just buying an already converted Sprinter from him. So this van right here, this my Sprinter that I'm in, is actually my second like official build.
Okay.
But it's my fourth van, and I'm about finishing my fifth van, which is my third build right now. And I've realized that, you know, I live on the road. I sleep in a van every night, but I'm actually kind of obsessed with just like making vans now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a true van lifer, as in I officially live on the road. But even like my fifth van that I'm about to finish, like I already have my sixth van all drawn up, you know, like I just don't see it ending very soon.
Right.
At least for right now, it's like my obsession, you know?
Yeah, I can totally relate, because I mean, so much of our work is being at the computer, you know, like just hunched over a screen. And so when I get the opportunity to do something with my hands and build something, you know, that's tactile, it's a great release, a great form of expression. And so anybody who's listening or watching, you should go check out, there's a YouTube video. We'll have to link it in the show notes, but a YouTube video of Quin's van that he's in right now, and it's awesome. Like there's so many amazing little details and features that he put into this, and he like completely aesthetically pleasing, but it's very functional. Like he's put a lot of thought into all of those details. So I recommend checking that video out. You were a photographer before you got on the road then?
It was more so I got on the road, and my first road trip I took was my biggest road trip, and I wasn't a photographer then. I just had my cell phone. I just so happened to take this road trip through Canada and the States and all through Central America, through Mexico, Central America, and down to South America with a girl that I didn't really know all that well, but she ended up bringing a camera, and I found out she was a really good photographer. So I was on the road for 6 months with this girl with a camera, with a lot of free time. And so I would say I jumped on that road trip not with the intention of becoming a photographer. So photography came after jumping on the road.
Yeah.
And then so I jumped on the road, became a photographer. I wouldn't really call it became a photographer. It's just like I kind of had a crash course in like settings and like DSLR, like figuring out what an aperture is, and how to like manually choose my settings each time I took a photo. Like that was a crazy experience for me, because my experience with photography was just to push a button, like put it in front of the scene and push the button. And then I started to realize that like there was a little bit more of an art to photography. If you wanted to make it an art, like you can choose to highlight a certain detail and then blur out the background if you want, or you can underexpose or overexpose to make things look really bright and inviting, blah blah blah. So through that trip, obviously we were there to experience it, but it became an increasingly fun challenge to capture the experience and share it with people. And this was probably in like 2013 or 14, maybe a little over 7 years ago. Yeah. And we were living out of my Toyota Corolla. I think it was a 1999 Toyota Corolla, and we just had like blow up mattresses, and we slept on the side by the wheel of the car. And like I said, I'd just see vans occasionally. Back then, Sprinters weren't even that common, but I remember seeing a Sprinter and like, that makes a lot of sense. Like I could even just see from the outside. I didn't even see the inside, but like I could just imagine like the dimensions inside of it and be like, yeah, that's a pretty efficient use of like a footprint. You know, it'd be nice to be able to stand up in something, but also be able to fit it in a parking space. The seed was planted pretty early on. It's just when I realized that Sprinters cost as much as they did. Like I got that Corolla for $2,000, and that's what I could afford at the time. And on
Uh-huh.
the same road trip, I ran out of money, like completely to zero, and I sold my Corolla in Costa Rica, just to be able to afford the flight home. So I wasn't gonna go out and buy a Sprinter, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I wasn't able to buy a Sprinter for probably until like 2018 or something like that. So
Yeah.
for another 3 or 4 years,
Right.
but definitely
Right.
my sight was set on, something that got decent gas mileage and that was capable and relatively stealthy too. Because Sprinters, especially back then in like 2017, lots of times Sprinters were like just delivery vehicles. So they felt a little bit more stealthy back then. Now that I'm in
Right.
this Sprinter and I'm in Southern California, nobody thinks this is a delivery vehicle. Everyone just assumes
I know.
it's an RV.
Yeah.
It's not
Right.
stealthy anymore. But hence my switch to the box van. The box
Yeah.
van is like ultra stealthy. People just think it's a U-Haul. It looks
Uh-huh.
straight up. It is a U-Haul. It's like
Uh-huh.
it's like the $20 a day option. It's not like the tiniest U-Haul you can get, but it's like the smallest, like of the
Okay.
all-in-one car
Right.
U-Hauls, not the tow behind U-Hauls. Yeah,
Nice.
stealth is pretty important for me. So Sprinters
Right.
aren't nearly as stealthy as I think they used to be.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's funny. Now I can even spot like stealth vans that, have put on like some graphics, or like a fake utility rack, with like a ladder or something, just like to try and complete the stealth factor. But even those anymore, if you see like a little vent coming out of the top, it's usually like the dead giveaway of like they've got to be able to breathe somehow. So if there's a vent,
Yeah,
especially if it's like a max air fan or something, you're like, oh yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But I mean, the way I like to think of it is like, even if it's for work, lots of times somebody's going to throw an event just to like be able to breathe when they're working
Yeah.
there. It
Right.
doesn't
Right.
necessarily mean
Yeah.
they live.
True.
At least that's
Yeah.
the hope. I'm sure it is a pretty big giveaway. But for me, it's
Yeah.
more the solar panels.
Oh,
Like
right. Solar panels too. Yeah. Yeah.
working vehicles aren't really going to have a solar panel.
Yeah. Exactly.
They might
Yeah.
have a roof
Yeah.
vent before a solar panel, but
True. True. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. If you're spending, I mean, if you have to spend a lot of time in the metropolitan areas, then yeah, I totally understand. It's tough and expensive, to camp anywhere near a big city anymore. Like here in Denver, I mean, especially now, forget about like even being able to get a reservation at an private RV park or anything. Like, yeah, it's a struggle to find places to park sometimes. So vans is like, yeah, where they can take you. And so you travel not only in your van like domestically, but internationally as well. And for anyone who doesn't know, Quin's Instagram is Everchanging Horizon, and just one look at his feed and your jaw will instantly hit the floor. So where have some of your favorite places been, internationally or domestically?
Yeah, no, I get this question
Yeah.
sometimes, and I think top 3 places. Number one is Mexico for sure. And it's not necessarily like Cancun or Cabo. It's more so
Yeah.
like Central Mexico, because it feels like a proper adventure. Like almost every time I go, it's something bad happens, but a lot of good things happen. So it's a lot of ups and downs. Like San Luis Potosí is a place that I really like. It's like a province in Mexico, and then the city of Monterrey also has a lot of really good stuff there, and even like
Cool.
Mexico City and stuff. It's really good for caves and waterfalls and stuff like that, and like just very jungly.
Okay.
And then Mexico City has the volcanoes that are like really tall and like mountaineering potential there. So, and then probably Peru. I'm pretty into Latin America because I speak Spanish, so I do a lot of. I go pretty deep in like Spanish speaking countries. I'm able to. Peru is like probably of anywhere other than the States, or anywhere that rivals the States in diversity. because like we always talk about how the States is so diverse. It has Hawaii and Alaska and you know, the desert in the Southwest and the lush forests in the Pacific Northwest. It's such a big country and diverse country that I've always been looking for an international country that potentially could like rival the States with diversity. And for me, it's like Peru. Peru is the one that comes the closest because it has like taller mountains in the Andes and more treks, more potential in the mountaineering space. And then it has the Amazon rainforest that we can't even compare to for like biodiversity, jungle. And then it has just like the whole coastline of beach. And then Switzerland is probably number 3 because I love the mountains in general.
Yeah, me too.
It's a different mountain experience because like you can take cable cars up to like the top of the mountains and it's just really accessible.
Scratch the surface on Mexico. We drove down Baja and spent a few months in Baja in 2015. And yeah, I totally get what you're talking about. It completely blew me away. Just so much beauty. And again, just in Baja alone, like the geographic diversity. I mean, people don't even realize there's mountains that are over 9,000 feet, you know, pine forests.
I didn't realize that.
It's amazing. Yeah. And then the people, I mean, all the locals we met were so friendly and then just stunningly beautiful. And it's amazing that you don't even have to get on a plane to go there. Just,
I got to do Baja, man. Huge crew of van lifers that go down like every February. And every year I'm like thinking I should go. And for the last 3 years, I've just been like really deep in a van build and I just can't pull myself.
You alluded to this new van build that you've got going on. And I follow your other Instagram feed, Quins Van. Is that right? Yeah. Everybody should check that out if you're into van builds. And that one's looking pretty sweet, that box van. So can you share any like unique features or any like details that you're excited about in that one?
Oh man, I'm like just overall really excited for the build in general. Just because it's a new approach. I'm doing it basically in collaboration with my buddy who's a stock trader. His name's Tim Sykes. I've worked with him for about 5 years, traveled the world with him. And I was increasingly talking about van life with him, and like he's never really been in a camper van. He's a luxury hotel type guy. So but he was into the idea and he thought it was cool sounding. So because he's a stock trader, he came up with the idea of just making an office version of a van build. So we travel the world and you know, sometimes we're paying like $2,000, sometimes more a night for just one single room with a view. You know, it's like a very luxurious experience to have this view of like Mount Fuji or wherever we're at. And so the idea was to like, you know, make just a really cool looking office, like a convincing office, as if it looks like a building, not a van. So for that reason, I thought the box van would be perfect because it's straight walls. And to me, like as a photographer, having lived in a van for a few years now, the dead giveaway if it's a van or not is if it like tapers a little bit, you know, like Sprinters, ProMasters, everything kind of like with that view out the back, it always like tapers in a little bit and I can just recognize it. And with the box van, you know, like at widest, my Sprinter view out the back is like, I want to say like it's a little under 5 feet. And then it tapers up. With the box fan, it's like 6 feet. So it's considerably wider and it's 6 feet all the way up at the top. Whereas the Sprinter that I'm looking at right now, it's like, you know, 4 feet at the top and like a little under 5 feet at the widest. So like to have that like really big open feel, I've only teased the box fan a few times on my account, and like I was just in Yosemite with it, and everyone's like, "Where's this new hotel?" You know, like literally everyone thought it was. They didn't realize it. So it's what I was hoping before. Like when Tim was like, oh, I just want it to be like a convincing office, as in like, no, I don't want anyone to know it's a van. I just want it to be like an exclusive office that just have all these crazy views, and people are just questioning like, where is this place that, you know, like that he's staying, when in all reality it's an art place. So it's like, it's like making this very exclusive shot. So the whole concept behind the box van is nothing to do with practicality or living in it or anything like that. It's just a creative project to make it a convincing office that converts to a hotel room. So like I said it, people thought it was a hotel room because that was in the hotel mode. So it's an office, the benches in the back, and then it converts to like just a nice bed. And it has like a half kitchen. It's got like a really big fridge and freezer, and basically a place to warm up leftovers. So it's not necessarily made for cooking or anything like that. It has a composting toilet. So it's kind of like exactly what you'd expect like an office to have. You think of an office having like kind of a half kitchen to warm up your lunch or whatever. Like that was the whole concept behind it. And approaching it in that way, I was able to use the shortest box fan possible. So it's actually like a foot shorter than the short Sprinter. And it feels really big, especially because I added a 5-foot pull-out back deck.
Oh, sweet.
So not only is it like 10 feet like of livable space, like that's the box length is 10 feet, but it has an extra 5 feet out the back. So it's like a 15-foot like big room that pulls out. And the benches, I made free-floating benches. So you can when you pull out the back deck, you can pull out the benches with it. So you can, you know, I'm just kind of picturing Tim like on some cool beach in California or Oregon or something like that. Oregon, you can like drive straight onto the beach. So we go to Oregon and we pull out the back deck, and like his workspace is literally like right over the sand. It's not even, it's like halfway in, halfway out, you know, because you can kind of use back doors. There's swinging back doors to like be like makeshift walls too. So it's just like an open ceiling and an open back. Like the view is still open, but the doors kind of are like makeshift walls. So it kind of feels like you're halfway in, halfway out. And so it's good for taking photos. It's just a really cool and unique experience. It feels much more like a tiny home than a home on wheels. It's probably similar to like an Airstream. But the Airstream has its own thing where it's like rounded. This is like very rigid box. It feels more like a container, you know?
Yeah, that explains why I saw that you teased. I saw some of those teases that you talked about, and you had the Office playing, you know, on the big screen. That explains that.
Yeah, so it has like 2 projectors. It has you know, the Happy Jack system. It's there's a number of companies that do it, but it's just a bed lift system. So like lots of times people have their bed, like they have the back end of the van with benches for an office space, and then they have a bed like kind of hugged up to the ceiling.
I know.
That system is like the button that you push, like it hugs the it basically creates a strong level that keeps the bed up all the way out of the way up in the ceiling, and then you hit the button and it kind of comes down. It's a very slow process, but it buzzes down, and then you have your bed ready at night. So I always thought that was cool, but I wanted to basically test its capabilities and see how much weight it could hold. So I made the Happy Jack basically, instead of it being the norm is up on the ceiling, it's actually the floor level. And the benches are on top of the Happy Jack. So in everyday life, it's just like a 5-inch step up to like the platform where the benches are. But that in the end is a false floor that levitates up. It can be raised up. And I also, this is a van of just like crazy ideas. I liked it because it didn't really have to make sense. It was just like pushing boundaries on all levels. So I cut like a massive, like 5 foot by 2 feet hole in the roof. And the idea is that like when you're sitting on the desk, at any point you can hit a button and open up the roof, and then you can hit another button and you can go through the roof. So
oh my God, that's
like
amazing.
the desk, when you're up in the highest level possible, the desk is like a few inches higher than the roof level.
Wow.
So you can you have the view of wherever you're at, you just pop straight through the roof.
That's insane. God, I love that. So it's just like your upper body is just kind of sitting out up top, like looking around. Good luck getting any work done, especially like if you're parked in Yosemite, looking at El Cap or anything like that. But
yeah, I mean, it's not practical in any way, but it is pretty good. So,
right. Yeah, I love it. That's so cool.
This is definitely a collaboration between me and Tim Sykes, because I think we were road tripping through like Florida or something in like December, and he's like, yeah, let's make a van. I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? He's like, I want to push a button and I want all the walls to fall off or something like that. And I'm like, he doesn't know anything about what he's talking about, right? So he just kept like throwing out crazy ideas. When you try to innovate, like you gotta, in the end, like I've wasted so much money and time just by like trying to do things too extreme. But you learn a lot from that. And I thought this build would take 2 or 3 months, and I think I'm 7 months in. But I did a month in Europe and like a few weeks in Bahamas. So like I'm still not really stopped my photography job, but probably a full-time work. I'm like 5 months in on this one.
The power needs for the van, if you've got a Happy Jack system, how is all this going to be powered?
So the Happy Jack system, I don't think it's actually too big of a power draw. There's a lot of things in the van that are big power draws, and I have like a portable induction stove and stuff like that. Sometimes if I want to make tea or whatever like that. So, I mean, in this Sprinter van, I have 600 amp hours of lithium battery, RELiON battery. And man, it's been amazing actually. Like I haven't had to worry about it at all. I have 500 watts of solar on the roof. I have 600 amp hours of lithium, and then a 60 amp DC to DC charger. My inverter is also a short power. So I have 3 ways to charge to power the 600 amp hours. Anytime I drive somewhere, it charges the batteries. And generally speaking, like an hour of driving is like 10% of the 600 amp hours of battery. 60 amps, 60 amp DC to DC charger. So that honestly is probably the strongest or the most common way that I keep my batteries charged. But right now it's super hot, midday, Southern California, and it's like summer. So my solar is pulling in. I'm at 100% right now. But my solar pulls in a lot at this time of year too. So, if I ever get low, I just run an extension cord and plug it into whatever outlet I can find. And that's, I've never actually had to do that, but 600 amp hours for me, like I cook a lot in this van. I have 2 burner induction stove, and I run those 2 all the time. I have a secret oven in here too. I
was just gonna say, does that run on 110 like on the AC power, or
the oven? I had to run an extension cord on that, so it's 110, and at high it pulls like 100 amps or something like that. I'm not sure what the wattage is on it. I would say it's a little over 1,000 watts probably. But yeah, I can run my oven and both burners at the same time. I've never had an issue. So that's the beauty of having 600 amp hours of lithium, and a 3,000 watt inverter.
Nice.
I was calculating all that stuff to be able to potentially run it all. Then I have a water heater and an AC unit. So like there really isn't like an amenity that I don't have in this van. And 600 amp hours to me is like overkill in a good way.
Yeah.
It's not like 1,000 amp hours. I have a friend that has 1,000 amp hours, and to me
Yeah,
that's like
me too.
really overkill.
Right.
But like for me, I think I actually probably need about 300 amp hours for a
Uh-huh.
full home build. But it's nice to have like double that, just in
For
case like
sure.
my solar stops
Yeah,
working or my DC to DC charger stops
for
working.
sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah, 600 amp hours has been really good. And then I have 300 amp hours in my box van, just because
Hmm.
that's not really geared for full home living. So that's enough to like run my fridge full time, and like power the Happy Jack system, the lights and stuff like that, and maybe charge my computer sometimes. So for me, 600 amp hours is really good for my full home, and 300 is really good for like my fun box fan project that I don't really anticipate like full time living in.
I was just gonna say I recently upgraded our battery system to RELiON, and wow, like I just completely, it's totally changed the game. We had AGM for like 5 years, and they did great, but I didn't realize like how much anxiety like I was just storing, on a day-to-day basis. What, like, always like getting close to, you can only take those down to like 50%, and like every day is just the anxiety of like, oh my gosh, we're low on power, or like, are we going to be able to power the furnace tonight, or how are we going to, get these batteries
Yeah.
charged, and like, none of that anymore. It's like not even an issue. Power is a non-issue. And the way, I mean, and how fast the lithium batteries charge too, like
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, I mean, they're, once you go lithium, you never go back. So yeah, it's,
Yeah.
I hooked up a DC to DC charger too, so we can charge while we're towing. And again, like, just I love these new, this new technology that's coming out, to making life so much easier for people like us, and for
Totally.
RVers. And yeah, so it's a good time to be a RVer or a nomad. Yeah.
How much do you have in your Airstream?
We have 600 as well. Yep.
Nice.
And there are times when we'll just run the air conditioner, completely off grid, which that was not even in the realm of possibility before. And granted, not for like not all day or anything, but if it's crazy hot, like we were camped at Lone Rock Beach on Lake Powell in June, and it was pretty day. It was triple digits, and it was just almost intolerable. But we were able to fire up the AC for like an hour or two, and it like, managed to take the edge off. And I knew that we were going to be able to recharge the batteries if we got them low. But that's the other thing, is like, you can take the lithium batteries down, to pretty much down to like 10% or lower without damaging them, which is another huge benefit. So yeah, 600 amp hours has been really great. I think I'm gonna have to add another solar panel though, to so that we don't have to charge it with the truck, and we have like a slower pace of travel, where we like to hang for like 2 weeks. I try to stay at one spot for like 2 weeks minimum, if I can, because I just like that pace. We've done the fast pace of travel before too. Like when we first got on the road, we were just like bing, 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 like going everywhere. But I really
Yeah.
like that tempo, that slower tempo, and you can really get to know a place better, and find more of the great like photography locations and things like that when you have some time. So that means that we're not driving and towing and therefore like charging as much. So I think I need another solar panel or two to replenish the batteries. But
Do you
do
ever
what?
just turn your engine like in idle?
Yeah, that's basically a last resort, just because with the diesel trucks, it's not really good to idle them. The catalytic converter can build up a lot of particulates and things, and it's kind of hard on it. But yeah, that's definitely an option. So yeah, but I also like our alternator is not huge. It's a 150 amp, and I think just to idle for a while, it would probably overheat the alternator if I did that too much. So, but if you're traveling, if you're driving, then it's much higher RPMs, and so it's less likely to burn out.
Gotcha.
I love being able to, when we're driving, pull up the Victron app and just see like, yep, there's, like 60 or 70 amps going into the batteries while we're underway. It's just like, it's a good feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have a specific reason on going with lithium, like in your builds, and like why RELiON?
Yeah. I actually heard about RELiON from my buddy Jared Tucci. And he's pretty thorough with his research, so I kind of trust his endorsement or whatever. But definitely for lithium, like, it's partly because for me, it's just saving space. Like, they're so much more efficient in terms of like 600 amp hours of lithium in AGM would be the equivalent of like 1200 AGM, because you can't really go past half there. And in general, I feel like it's like 3 times as big, like 1200 amp hours of AGM size wise and weight wise is like almost 3 times as big as like I just have 2 300 amp hour, I think it's RB 300, or I think that's the item name or whatever, from RELiON. And I have a big battery bank, and it doesn't really take up that much space under my bed.
Right. Yeah.
So for me, it's like such limited space. To have 600 amp hours of lithium, it enables me to have like to get rid of the propane tank for a propane powered stove, and I just have all electric. So I don't have to worry about filling up the propane. I don't have to worry about like propane leaks or it exploding or anything like that. So like, if you can afford it, I think lithium is definitely a no-brainer. It's just a little bit more expensive, but especially if you're going to be full-time living, like, it's totally worth. It's one of those things that it's really important not to skimp on your electrical system. Yeah. Because I had so many headaches in my first like Sprinter van, because I cut corners and like wanted to do things cheaply. I don't know. I just always remember like my first Sprinter is one that I bought. I didn't make it. So when an electrical system error happened, it's like, I can't really just like go into a garage or anything like that. Like, they don't know how these people wired it. So like, I just felt like I was at a loss. Like, nothing's working and I don't know how it works and nobody else knows how it works and I'm in the middle of nowhere. That's a really bad feeling. To like have your batteries fail or something fail, and all of a sudden your lights don't work and nothing works. Totally. That's like kind of like your whole like world crashing down. And like, it's kind of like it's like even just remembering those times, it just stresses me out. So it's nice to know, it's nice to be involved in knowing how it's all wired, knowing how it's all going in, and that it's done properly. And especially with RELiON, as opposed to like a cheap like Chinese knockoff, is like they have customer service and they're good. So if something does happen, they have experts there. There's lithium batteries you can get for cheaper off Alibaba, but when your whole build and all these fancy features you put into it hinges on a sketchy, like, imported battery system, it's kind of like building your house on a bad foundation. If you invest a ton in this really nice house and then all of a sudden there's a sinkhole, and like what we're seeing in Florida, if the house falls down because the foundation's bad, like, it's pretty important to have like to not skimp on an electrical system, I'd say.
Basically the lifeblood. I mean, if you don't have electricity, everything stems from it. Like, you can't refrigerate your food, you can't charge anything, you can't really even pump water out of your water tanks to drink. There's so many things. Like
the bed lift too. Like, you can't bring down your bed to sleep. Everything in these builds is kind of hinging on the batteries working, the electrical system being solid. it's nice to have creature comforts when you're on the road. That it makes it feel like you're not on the road. If you're going to go with those creature comforts, you gotta, like, the battery system is the foundation, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right. And they are, one thing I tell people is they are expensive up front, but they will pay off over time. I mean, the warranty on them lasts, it's like 7 years or something. And they will last most likely beyond that. It's like some crazy amount of charge cycles. So, I mean,
Yeah.
They will pay off. And then just the peace of mind as well. There's a psychological component, you know, that you're not sacrificing either. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about your photography before we wrap it up. So your Instagram now, you're at like 1.3 million followers last I checked. And that's just mind blowing. That's so cool. Was there like I guess an inflection point? This profession as a photographer and Instagram is it's something that can sustain me like long term. How did that all evolve for you?
It wasn't necessarily like this can. It's like, wow, this actually is like, so like I didn't quit my job until I was already making money on Instagram. It wasn't like I can make money on Instagram. It was like, well, I'm getting more and more offers from Instagram, and I'm actually making more money through these job offers than I was installing alarm systems prior to, like, that was my last job. I was an accountant before that. I didn't go full time on Instagram, and I guess to answer that question, I am full time on Instagram, but I'm also a full time van builder. Okay. So I kind of split my time, and I get paid, you know, from both. And pretty equally, surprisingly. So at least right now, it's like, I mean, I was getting paid by photography, and then I got like some offers for the van, and surprisingly, like the amount of time and effort and how much I get paid is pretty comparable. I don't know if, you know, my van stuff will take off and then all of a sudden that will become my full-time thing. That's kind of where I would like to go, just because I'm a little bit more into that. And I feel like there's a little bit more that I can do. I'm kind of burnt out, for lack of a better term, on not photography. Like, I really like photography. It's just the posting and engaging, things like that. It really, like, it out of me. But I didn't go full time on Instagram probably until I had like 200,000 followers, 250 or something like that. And that was probably in 2014 or 15. I was getting job offers way before that. But they were all kind of like weird job offers, and it was before like #ad was ever a thing or anything like that. So I didn't really have friends that were making money on Instagram. So it just kind of felt like spammy offers. So it was a little bit hard to take it seriously. Until I started getting jobs from like cruise lines and like kind of like more legit offers. I think my first big job was probably a cruise, and then my first like reoccurring job was like for a clothing company called Tentry that like was good for the environment. It was just kind of like one of those things like, oh, this is a cool company. It's kind of hard to say no to these guys. Like, it wasn't necessarily because they were offering me a ton of money. It was just like this isn't just like some spammy like weird company that I would like be shameful to represent. It's like, actually I could get behind this. So like I started getting offers that were good monetarily, and also just like cool companies that I was like happy to say yes to.
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
I started getting those two aspects. Like when I started seeing those offers come in, basically I was said yes, because like I didn't have a reason to say no. And I was making, I guess at the time, I thought good money installing alarm systems, but it didn't take very long to make more than I would in a year installing alarm systems just by like some photography jobs. So when I started making more through photography, it was like kind of a no-brainer that I would just go for it. And it became like financially solvent, like it would fund my travels, and I started being able to save for the first time in my life through photography. Like all my other jobs were just kind of like getting by. So but in terms of like growth and like how it how it like kind of snowballed. I think in the beginning, a lot of it was like reaching out to just people that I admired, and I thought their work was really good. So, and like I had enough on my Instagram account to kind of show who I was and what I was into. And I think because like they were able to like see what I was into, and that it was cool, and I was kind of like them, like into the same stuff. Like I made friends with people that I really looked up to, and basically got crash courses in like their business models and like how they go about creating content and why they do it, and like intention behind everything. So I was kind of like into the idea of like picking someone's brain, not to like figure out how to copy their shot, but like to figure out what motivates them, so that I could apply like an overall concept into like making me a more well-rounded creator. So like my buddy Travis taught me how to like take astro, like night photography photos. He literally showed me that skill. And then when he showed me like how he does it, then I kind of like applied it into my own style. And so like kind of like getting these diverse like mentors really helped in the beginning to like be able to capture a scene better, and like understand my tools and hone in on my craft a little bit better. And I did the same thing with van life too. Like, you know, there's this guy in San Diego, his name's Buck SD on Instagram. Craziest van builds I've seen. Like they look super modern and futuristic, and I've always looked up to him. And so I just like made friends with him, and I went and saw the van in person, and now we go like one wheeling for sunset sometime. Like it's great. Just kind of cool to like surround yourself with people that you really look up to. And I think that's a good way to basically like be a little bit more ambitious and hopefully like up your game. You know what I'm saying? Like he was really good. His van builds are really good for like finishes and like just attention to detail. So seeing it in person, not just that, but like hearing him talk about it and why he does it and how he does it and how much time he puts into it, how much stress goes into it and stuff like that. It kind of helps make it feel like real and tangible, and it's then easier to apply into my own work. So I think that's a pretty big part in like how I got to where I'm at in photography, and now like how I'm able to finally in my like 5th build to like innovate and like kind of push the boundaries in van life. It just takes time. It takes a lot of like failing. It takes a lot of like trying things, and lots of times they don't work out. And so every time that happens, you get a little bit better. And you know, right now I'm really in the thick of it with like van life and kind of like not being able to sleep because I'm thinking about different things that I want to do and stuff like that. And I'm like a kind of a crazy like creative in that way, where I'm either not inspired and like bored, or I'm like completely obsessed. And right now I'm not really inspired with photography as much because I'm the type of guy that can only dedicate myself to like one thing. And right now that one thing is box van that I'm working on. So if you just take a back seat, it's not that I won't get back to photography. And I was just taking photos in Yosemite all last week. So like I'm still doing photography, but it's more for work. It's not really where my heart's at right now. Right now, when I'm out shooting in Yosemite, I'm still like drawing up designs in my notebook for van life. You know, so that's like what I want to be doing. But like that's how I was with photography back in the day, and that's probably why I took off, is because I was just like so passionately into it and obsessed with it. And you know, I would just go places and really obsess over how to capture it and what the best way to do it was. And I would say like one of the main reasons that I grew back in the day was that I was posting videos. Now, now video is like really, really common and almost like a necessity because everyone's doing like reels and stuff like that. But I was creating like little like story videos, you know, back in the day, like 5 years ago. And those would go crazy. Like those would get me followers. They would get featured and stuff like that. And then they'd get thrown up on Facebook, and I would get followers on Facebook, and then it would go like viral across platforms.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
so I used to say that I grow from my videos, but I actually get work from my photos. Like, because I would get hired for photography jobs. I wouldn't necessarily get hired because of my videos, but I would get like, I get more followers and grow because of the videos.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess that's a kind of a topic to touch on, is like, is just being diverse. I think I grew because like my business strategy was basically to like, if I announce that I'm going to Mexico or something like that, I don't want anybody to know what my photos are going to be before I post them. You know, that's kind of one of my gripes with social media, is like someone posts like that they're going to Bora Bora or something like that. Like, I don't even need to follow you anymore. I know exactly what you're going to post.
Right.
Like, 'cause there are like kind of like shots that people kind of check off their list. And if they're now they're going to a certain location, I kind of already know what I'm going to see. So like, and that really bothers me, and it makes me yawn and unfollow people. So like I internalize that, and I just don't want anybody to be able to guess what I'm going to post next. Yeah, like I got to keep it within my bounds. Like I can't just go start posting like high fashion portraits or something like that. Like I don't think anybody would appreciate that. So like kind of got to keep it within the box, but like at the same time, even back then, like I used to say, like I grow from my videos and I get work from my photos. Like at least I had photos and videos. And you know, like, so like having a different type of post and being like really diverse, like for me, it's like I like to go somewhere cold and then go somewhere warm right after that. Like, so that it's just like constantly kind of like cycling through and finding new locations. And if it's not a new location, like if it's Yosemite, finding new takes on classic locations. But like, you know, at a certain point, a few years into your photography career, you got to start doing something a little different, like find your official style as opposed to like replicating what's already done. And that's where I'm finally getting to in my van building career, is that now finally, like I understand it. I'm confident enough in my craft that now it's time to like really have fun with it and push boundaries and stuff like that.
That was one thing that I always respected about your work, was that like no matter Yosemite or Sequoia or all these places that I'd been to, the photos that you were posting were some of the best photos that I just hadn't seen anywhere else. So yeah, that's good stuff. So, well, cool. It's been a lot of fun. I could talk your ear off all night. But thanks for sharing all of your wisdom and experience with us.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, Seth.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.